All right, everybody, here is part 3 and week 3 of the build. And if you guys have been following along, you could see that we have some very substantial progress. At this point, the framing, or the skeleton, if you will, of the camper is largely complete. I am wrapping up a few minor things and so forth, but the next stages will be what I call skinning the camper, or putting the cedar boards on it that will constitute the walls and add a large portion of the shear strength for the entire structure. So here it is, though. Let's take a look. I'm going to talk about a few things, but I don't have a ton new other than, seeing the progress here. But I'll kind of talk about some minor challenges and things that I ran across this past week and how I got to it. So last week I discussed, as I recall, I was making these large beams that will go across, and I was showing how these beams essentially formed a joint and fit in there. So it worked out well. Everything was square enough, at least for such a large project. I did go ahead and add some pocket hole screws there, just to add some extra rigidity. So keep in mind, let's see if this video works here. So if you look up on top there, you could see that the beam actually is mortised into, forms a physical joint into the beam that goes down and attaches down to the tub. And that's done throughout. So this framing turned out very rigid, very strong, and it went all together as planned. Now, one thing I'm doing on this one, which was different from the other, is installing these boards across the top. And these add some rigidity to the frame, but they also kind of help me guide what will be the arc of the roof. A keen eye will probably see that this is not a perfect arc on these boards, and in later videos when I install the roof, I will essentially I sanded it and formed it the best I could, but as we progress, and you'll see, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to have the general form. I've already laid out some of that 15-30 plywood that I used on the roof, and formed it, or pulled it down with clamps and identified what the natural curves are, and they're going to be I'm very pleased. I think it's going to look really nice. So you guys will just kind of have to see. That's going to be but before we get into the roof, that's going to be some significant portion in the future. But I think it's going to turn out well. But these boards do provide some rigidity and strength to the frame. They'll add an extra area for the actual mechanical attachment of the roof to the structure, and they also were a big help in visualizing how this is coming together. But you guys will see as we go in for other videos. I got some plans for that, but I'm kind of my preliminary assessment of how the roof is going to arc over everything. Sorry, and what the general profile of the roof is going to be. I think it's going to be very nice. So you can see back here, one thing I did want to talk about, which was kind of the idea of differential wood species use, is so this, where are we at here? This is essentially the door frame. This is where the door is going to sit. So we'll walk through here. We're inside now. That is the door. So what I chose to do on this one was I used oak for the door frame, and I did that primarily because I wanted a hardwood, a little bit of a stronger wood, to attach the door hinges to, and perhaps even more importantly for me was the latch point of the deadbolt and the door handle. I will also reinforce it with a piece of steel, one of those things. But that was one thing. I mean, the other camper, I've had no problems with it, but I kind of acknowledged that you know, that deadbolt was really locking through with cedar, and it's just not as strong in very specific applications as a piece of oak wood, for example. And now the downside of using oak, and why the vast majority of this is made out of cedar, it really comes down to cost and weight. You know, oak is among the hardwoods, it's one of the less expensive, but it's still very expensive compared to cedar or other softwoods. And it's very heavy. I don't know the exact ratio. I'm sure we could look that up, but I mean, I would just anecdotally holding a piece, I mean, I think it's probably maybe an upwards of 4 or 5 times heavier than an equivalent piece of cedar. So, you know, using oak is something that you kind of want to use sparingly, but in a project like this, or any woodworking project, you know, I think it's important, you know, even though wood is a natural material, I kind of, you know, I consider it a material science in terms of what material you choose for what application. And you know, it's typically okay to use differential woods in different places if you need very specific strength or other requirements. I also used another piece of hardwood. It's going to be covered, no one will see it, so I wasn't really worried about the mismatch of species, but I used a piece of poplar down here, which is also hardwood, to kind of make that front cap there a little bit more rigid. So but those will largely be the, at least as I think of it right now, those will probably be the only differential wood species uses in this. Obviously outside of the engineered plywood that was used for the tub, and the plywood that's going to be used for the main structure of the roof. I will caveat that I haven't made up my mind for certain, but I will probably use some redwood pickets for some of the interior portions to kind of add just a contrast of color. But that is more of a cosmetic thing, and the redwood has a lot of, it's very similar to cedar in terms of its characteristics, its resistance to rot. I feel like, I don't know if this is a technical thing, but just kind of me picking up redwood versus cedar, I feel like redwood's a little heavier. But maybe somebody could leave a comment, and I don't know if that was just you know, the specific wood that I was handling on a few occasions or not. But anyways, generally redwood is considered dimensionally stable, like cedar, very rot resistant, and they're you know, they're different woods, no doubt, but they're, you know, they tend to kind of be lumped in together as having similar qualities. But you know, redwood does have some different colorings. But anyways. But yeah, this is it, guys. This video will be a little shorter. But yeah, progress is coming. Next step is I will start skinning it. That's going to be, I expect that to be a pretty lengthy process because this is a lot of space to cover. But it's coming along. I'm happy with the progress. Everything is coming along, coming together well. It's thus far very rigid, and you guys will see that once it's skinned, you know, that was the point in time where I saw, you know, the last camper I built, really the strength of the whole system coming together, and I mean, that thing was rock solid. But this framing on this is already, as I remember, you know, more rigid than you know, the last camper I built. Not that the last camper was bad, but just, you know, just kind of some of the different things I learned through the process. So, all right, guys, stay tuned. I really do like the comments. I've seen, you know, there's been many comments between all the videos I put up of different people who've taken on their own projects, and I love to see those. I think that's really cool. You know, and like I said, you know, if you have a little nugget of wisdom that we can all learn from, throw it down in there, or ask a question, or so forth. I have had a few questions on, I don't think it's been on any of these most recent videos, but on some of the other ones about build plans. And for better or worse, kind of my philosophy in not only building these campers, but in building other woodworking projects through my time, has been one where I essentially build it in my head. I do have a little book that I will sketch some things. Mostly, though, it's just to write down measurements. But the concept and how this all comes together, I literally visualize it, and I can in my mind, I can kind of twist around the structure and think about, you know, how things will come together. Um, so I don't have plans, in short. And you know, hey, I understand that that's not the best way to do things, but for me and my projects, I really consider these unique, singular pieces. I have no expectation of building something that's exactly the same, and I almost see it from that perspective as art. And you know, for me, I mean, I'm not aversive to writing down plans. It's just that it's not worth my, it's not something that I have the time to do. It's not, I'm not a good sketcher, and it kind of, in some ways, takes away the creative flow that comes with seeing something come together. And that's really what I enjoy. So I apologize. Many of you have asked for plans, and they don't exist. So it's just, when I built the first camper, I saw inspiration from other things, and, you know, came up with some of my own ideas and essentially constructed it in my mind. And that, you know, that came out on the canvas of what would be the structure itself. And the same thing is with this. You know, of course, I had some inspiration from some things. I had some ideas about aerodynamics and size and structure, and you know, all of those things kind of coalesced and is coming out in what you see here. And you know, and there is some things that in the end, hold on, sorry, I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. In the end, you know, there are some things that surprise me. You know, when the product is finished and the final look, you know, it's and that's, for me, exciting. It would be less exciting to draw something on paper and then build it exactly as I see it. I like the organic process of seeing it come together and seeing it in the final product. So again, guys, I appreciate your viewing. Thanks so much.